When I first discovered gaming back in the early 90s, I had to beg for time on the family PC to play the usual gamut of point and clicks and adventure games and platformers. There was one game that always terrified me. I was probably too young to play it, but I just have these memories of being trapped in this attic of a haunted manor. So when THQ Nordic got in touch and told me that they were remaking the game, and they would like us at Realm Pictures to create a real-life experience for them, we knew we had to do something special. Now, it's been a few years since we did one of these projects. In the past, we've always connected the players to the game space via video link. But for a survival horror experience, that wasn't going to work. We didn't want to give players the security of a screen and a keyboard to hide behind. So, for the first time, we have flown our players from all over the world to come here in person to our game space. We've rigged this building with all sorts of gags and tricks and devices that allow us to mess with their heads, to slowly peel away every layer of psychological security they have, so that we can find out what happens when we leave our players alone in the dark.
The team at THQ Nordic wanted the experience to start as early as possible for the players, so we designed and built 20 antique travel chests full of hidden compartments and props from the new game that would eventually lead to a mysterious invite to come to London. We couldn't even begin on the game design until we found our location. We're blessed here in the UK with plenty of old buildings in various states of disrepair, and we visited dozens of them, but the real trick was finding one that felt like it belonged in the universe of the game, which is set in Louisiana in the 20s. We were never planning to pretend players were in the US, but we wanted to conjure a similar energy. In the end, we found the perfect place, and it was better than we could have ever hoped. Situated on its own private island just outside central London, we found this place. It had so much going for it: the wraparound balconies, the roof access, the bridge, boat access. The only trouble was that it was in the process of being renovated. It looked abandoned now, but in 6 months it would be somebody's home. We had to get started. Now armed with blueprints, we got to work on the game design. Now, we knew we wanted to reference the original game and have players start in the attic, so from there it was a case of building a story and a series of gags around the unique layout of the house. We used LiDAR scans to create a clone of the house inside Unreal Engine, so we could walk around it on screen or in VR and get a sense for what each section might feel like for players as they crept around in the darkness. Next, we had to think about cameras. We quickly ruled out having camera operators in the house with the players. There was no way they'd be able to stay hidden, so we went back to the original game for inspiration. In 1992, Alone in the Dark overcame the technical limitations of the time by having fixed cameras in its 3D environment, effectively CCTV. So we reached out to our friends at Ubiquity and explained what we were planning to do. We were going to need to hide over 80 cameras throughout the house, all recording simultaneously for 11 straight nights. Fortunately, they were as excited about the idea as we were, and even sent us a bunch of specialist cameras that were still in development. We had miniature cameras we could hide in the set. We had a huge pan-tilt zoom head that could track the players as they approached the house. We even had one that we could fix a DSLR lens to, and then a small army of these great little workhorses that would sit in the corners of each room, tracking the players as they explored the house, just like in the original game. Just like our previous games, everything needed to be coordinated behind the scenes in our control room, but because of the complexity and scale of the tech involved, and the fact that the game was running on an island, the control room had to actually be hidden in the house with the players. The control room is the nerve centre where everything happens, with the goal of being able to control as many variables inside the house as is humanly possible. It's kind of like being Ed Harris in The Truman Show or on the bridge of the Enterprise, but instead of looking out at an alien world, you're switching between a dozen CCTV feeds as you players spring the traps you've set for them.
Okay, we have players near the bookshelf. Cue the bookshelf, please, in 3, 2, 1. Okay, cue the bookshelf, cue the bookshelf.
What was that?
Up front, we had our helmsman, Kris operating the visuals. It's up to him to manage the camera network and all the data it was capturing, but also to preemptively switch between custom scenes so we could get the best possible views of the players as they explored. Then we had Kris on engineering, so he's the guy in charge of all the interactive elements of the house, communicating with them via a custom piece of software we built. The house was filled with Arduinos, ESP32s, Raspberry Pis that would all do his bidding. So when I want the flashlight to flicker, that's Kris.
No.
No.
That's not funny.
No, I'm not playing around. The light just died. Oh, just like a fucking movie, huh?
When I want the books to fall off a bookcase, or a corpse to start banging, or a doll to start crawling across the floor, that's all Kris.
Some Steven Spielberg shit, I'm getting out here.
He could even control clouds passing in front of our artificial moonlight, thanks to some fancy light projectors provided by Roscoe. We also had our remote control Ouija board so that we could communicate with our players through the spirits of the dead. We knew the players would try to have some fun with this, so we didn't want to have to limit ourselves to just a set of stock answers. The result was a Frankenstein mashup of an electromagnet and a CNC machine hidden inside a coffee table, all controlled from an iPad. So we can hear their questions thanks to the CCTV, and now we can answer them too.
Do you like my outfit today? Oh, thank you, Sarah, my darling. Thank you.
Do you think we are pretty? No.
Next up was Ben, once again providing the soundscape for the game. Only now it wasn't a case of just mixing the right sounds in real time into a live stream. This time he had to turn the entire house into a living soundscape. So alongside the camera network, we rigged the house with over 100 independent speakers, all connected to Node PCs hidden throughout the building. Ben was then able to create a 3D mock-up of the house with all the speakers inside, so now instead of just triggering a sound, he can actually place it spatially within the house. If he wants to make it sound like someone is scratching against the door or walking around on the floor above you, he can. So that's fine for things that stay put. But what about things that you can carry with you, or creatures that are chasing you all around the house? We had a whole new challenge ahead of us with production design. In our previous games, and in films in general, all that matters is that a prop looks good on camera. We could use a foam wrench or a polystyrene statue in real life Hitman, because only the cast and crew would ever know. Now that we had the players actually inside the house, everything needed to be real.
There's some murdies here.
They're real tiny. If we come back and they're dead, we'll leave it.
No, they're not dead now.
We had to create real wax candles that could ignite themselves wirelessly on command, but that could still be picked up and inspected by the players.
I don't know how they do this.
Our modified flickering flashlights still had to look normal, even if the players opened them up to check the batteries. And we had to buy dozens of vintage porcelain dolls, then 3D scan their heads so that we could create resin replicas to hide keys inside, or give them articulating servos so they could crawl across the floor. We even had one with a remote-controlled voice box that could speak on command, and for bonus points, she knew all of the players' names.
No, Ruben, acaba de decir mi nombre. No, fuck this shit, no, just...
We had our costume designer, Sophie, create a replica of the Dark Man from the game, 3D printing hundreds of pieces for his mask and mantle. And then there was the Mound Beast. For this, Sophie had to sculpt a silicon bodysuit that could accommodate our creature performer, Jake Nwogu, and the various bits of hardware necessary to allow him to bring the monster to life. He needed arm stilts to achieve the correct body position and gait. We added a night vision camera and goggles so that he could hunt his victims in the dark, and we fitted him with a chest-mounted speaker so that he could trigger a roar timed with his puppeteering of the head.
Someone moving on.
No, pace.
What's that?
Oh, scheiße.
In the end, after 3 months of prep, 3 weeks of installation, and then 11 straight nights of back-to-back games, it was the crew that held it all together. From actors John Campling and Steve Corrall, who briefed the players in character and brought them across to the island by boat, to the production team who had to hide, alone, in dark corners of the house to plant props or fix problems on the fly. From the caffeine-fueled operators in the control room to Team Wall, who spent hours each night sealed behind false walls just so we could screw with the players' sense of direction. Beyond all the tech, it was the people that managed to hold this thing together by the skin of our teeth and give our players the scare of their lives.
Greatest experience in my life!
The freaking boat! The whole house!
Budgies in the cage. That was crazy.
That monster looked so real. You're horrible. Disgusting.
The dolls, that freaked me out.
I was really in panic, so I totally forgot that this is not real.
It's like one of the best haunted house escape rooms experience I've ever done, so props to you.